So research actually shows that the average hiring manager makes a subconscious decision about whether or not to hire you in the first 90 seconds of an interview.
Wow.
Yeah.
90 seconds. That's barely any time at all.
Right, 90 seconds. And, if you're interviewing in your native language, maybe you can sort of charm your way through that minute and a half. But if you were doing that interview in a second language.
Oh, it's a completely different ballgame.
Exactly. You might spend 80 of those first 90 seconds just trying to translate the word synergy in your head.
It's a terrifying statistic, honestly, and I think it completely validates that unique, just intense, heart-pounding anxiety you feel when you're sitting in the waiting room.
Oh, yeah. Or staring at that little digital waiting room screen on a video call.
Yes, the pressure is already immense, right? And the language barrier acts like this massive amplifier for every ounce of that stress.
It really does. Because, well, here's the fundamental problem. You know exactly who you are. You know your skills, you know your professional history, you're smart, and you are highly capable in your field.
Absolutely.
But the second you sit down across from that interviewer and they say, hello, nice to meet you, it feels like your entire professional identity just vanishes.
It just evaporates.
You open your mouth to speak in English and your brain just gives you like dial-up internet noises. It goes completely blank.
I love that dial-up internet noises. But seriously, if you are listening to this right now and you felt that exact paralyzing panic, we need you to know right out of the gate you are not alone.
Not at all.
And more importantly, you are not failing because your English is bad. You are failing because of the cognitive load.
Yes, the cognitive load.
You're a smart professional whose only barrier right now is the real-time processing power required to translate under immense social pressure.
That is just the perfect way to frame it. And honestly, that is exactly our mission for this deep dive today.
Exactly.
We're going to explore the actual factual strategies, the underlying psychology of the interviewer, and the specific language patterns you need to master an English job interview.
We want to help you build a system so you can walk into that room with just unshakable confidence.
Right. We're going to teach you how to use what we call natural spoken chunks. And spoiler alert, we're going to prove to you that you absolutely do not need perfect textbook grammar to succeed.
We really, really have to dismantle that myth today. I mean, perfectionism is the enemy of connection.
So true.
The interviewer wants a colleague, right? Not a walking grammar dictionary. Communication, connection, and clarity are the actual goals.
I was thinking about this whole process earlier, and I kind of like to compare interviewing in English to juggling.
Okay, I like where this is going.
So imagine you're trying to juggle 3 balls. That's a standard interview in your native tongue. You're trying to showcase your hard skills, you're trying to navigate office politics, and you're trying to maintain friendly eye contact.
Which is hard enough on its own.
Exactly. But interviewing in a second language, that is like trying to juggle those same 3 balls while riding a unicycle.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
The juggling is the interview itself. The unicycle is the completely separate, massive cognitive load of translating your thoughts, monitoring your accent, and searching for vocabulary in real time.
That analogy hits the nail on the head. And the secret to not falling off that unicycle isn't, trying to pedal harder or reading an English dictionary the night before.
Right, that won't help.
No.
Yeah.
The key is a very specific type of preparation. You need to rely on what linguists call chunks.
Chunks.
Yeah. Trying to build a sentence word by word under pressure is like trying to mold raw plastic into a Lego brick during a timed test.
Oh, that sounds exhausting.
It is. It takes way too long.
Yeah.
Chunks are pre-built Lego blocks. They're reusable, natural phrases. When you internalize chunks, you stop translating. You just reach into your mental toolbox and pull out the pre-assembled phrase you need.
I love the Lego visual. So, to you, the listener, we're inviting you to actively participate today. Don't just let this audio play in the background.
Definitely not.
Think about your own career. Visualize yourself in that chair and practice these Lego blocks with us. Let's unpack this from the very beginning.
Let's do it.
Before we even get to the tricky behavioral questions, we have to talk about that first impression. Because the literature we've been analyzing shows there are mental traps that completely sabotage candidates before they even cross the threshold of the office.
And the most destructive of those traps is that perfectionism trap we touched on earlier.
Right.
The research highlights this massive pain point. Candidates trigger their own fight or flight response the moment they have to give an opinion, simply because they are terrified of using the wrong verb tense.
They think, if I say, I have went instead of I went, The hiring manager is going to write me off as completely uneducated.
Exactly. They think one dropped preposition ruins their entire career trajectory.
Which is just demonstrably false, right?
Yeah. Completely false. Here is the reality of the psychology of the interviewer. Pronunciation clarity and your own internal comfort level are vastly more important than accent perfection or flawless grammar.
Authenticity always beats robotic perfection.
Always, always. If you make a small grammar mistake, you just keep going. Your attitude, your warmth, and your ability to convey your core ideas are what actually register in the interviewer's brain.
So let's get into the physical arrival, because the data here is fascinating. The physical things you do actually help calm your neurological system so you can access your English vocabulary better.
It's all connected.
The basics are standard, right? Arrive early, dress professionally, bring copies of your resume, bring a pen, turn off your phone, and go alone. But let's elevate this. We're talking to professionals.
Right, you already know you need to look neat.
Exactly. But what's the underlying mechanism here? Why does this matter so much when you're operating in a second language?
Well, it comes down to a psychological principle known as the halo effect.
A halo effect.
Yeah. It's a cognitive bias where our overall impression of a person influences how we feel and think about their character.
Oh, interesting.
So if your first impression is highly organized, prepared, and composed, the interviewer unconsciously throws a halo over you.
Ah. Wow.
That means later, when you stumble over an English word or take a few seconds to answer a question, they don't view it as a lack of intelligence. They view it through the halo. They think, oh, they're just being thoughtful, or they're just taking their time.
Wow. So you're basically building a buffer of goodwill before you even speak a single word.
Exactly. Let's look at the resumes, for instance. Why bring 3 printed copies?
All right, everything is digital now anyway.
But you might walk into a conference room and find a panel of 3 interviewers. If you confidently hand each of them a crisp, clean copy of your CV, you instantly establish authority.
It removes friction.
Yes. If they have to scramble to find your digital resume, that creates subtle annoyance. You want to eliminate all friction.
Makes sense. And regarding going alone, this is vital, right?
Huge. In some cultures, bringing a family member for moral support, especially if you feel insecure about your language skills, is totally normal.
Sure.
But in Western corporate culture, it instantly signals a lack of independence.
Okay, I have to push back on one thing, though. Turning off the phone. I mean, everyone knows it shouldn't ring. But what if I just leave it on silent? What if there's an emergency?
I get that, but if your phone buzzes in your pocket, even if it's completely silent to the room, your brain will subconsciously allocate bandwidth to wonder who is texting you.
Oh, that's so true. I always wonder who it is.
Right, and you need 100% of your cognitive bandwidth to balance on that unicycle. Turn it completely off.
Fair point. Protect the bandwidth. Okay, so you've arrived, you're alone, your phone is a useless brick in your bag. Now comes the greeting.
The crucial moment.
This is the exact moment people freeze. Let's do some actual language coaching here. How do we build this initial interaction?
We keep it to the simplest, most undeniable chunks. You do not need to walk in and say, greetings. I am immensely gratified by the opportunity to interface with your esteemed organization.
Oh my gosh, please don't say that.
Right. It sounds ridiculous and incredibly unnatural. You model this simple target language instead. Good morning, or good afternoon, pause. Nice to meet you, pause. Thank you for meeting with me today.
Let's practice that.
Yeah.
Let's say I'm the hiring manager. I walk out to the lobby. Hi there, I'm Sarah, the Director of Marketing.
Good morning, Sarah. Nice to meet you. Thank you for meeting with me today.
It's so clean. But here is the thing. While you are saying those simple words, your body language is actually speaking louder than your English.
Absolutely.
The research points out that you must keep your hands visible. Don't cross your arms because it reads as defensive. Lean slightly forward. But why does this matter for the language learners specifically?
Because your body language physically affects your vocal cords and your breathing? Yeah. If you cross your arms and hunch over, you compress your diaphragm. Your voice becomes thinner, quieter, and just harder to hear.
Oh, wow.
When you sit up straight, keep your chest open, and keep your hands visible, you take in more oxygen. Your English will physically sound deeper, clearer, and more resonant. Plus, nodding while listening proves comprehension without you having to say a word.
That is such a great physical hack. But let's talk about the nightmare scenario. This is the thing that keeps people awake at 3 a.m. the night before.
I know exactly what you're going to say.
What if you do all of that? You sit down, the interviewer starts talking, they speak incredibly fast with a heavy regional accent, and you literally do not understand a single word they just said to open the interview. You just freeze.
It's terrifying, but it is highly recoverable.
How?
Well, the absolute worst thing you can do here is fake it. Do not nod and guess.
Because if you guess wrong,
If you guess wrong, the disconnect is jarring and ruins that halo effect we talked about.
Right.
Instead, you use a recovery chunk. You lean in slightly, smile, and say, "Could you repeat that, please?" Or, "Could you explain what you mean?"
is it really that acceptable? Doesn't it make me look like I don't speak English well enough for the job?
Not at all. In fact, native speakers ask for clarification constantly.
That's true. I do it all the time.
Exactly. It shows that you are an active, engaged listener who cares about accuracy. It shows confidence. A weak candidate pretends to understand. A strong candidate takes control of the communication.
I love that.
Saying, "Could you repeat that, please?" forces the interviewer to slow down and rephrase, and they will gladly do it.
That is so empowering. Could you repeat that, please? Write that down, seriously. Okay, so the greeting is done. You're seated. The ice is broken. Now, the real test begins.
Here we go.
We are moving into the big three questions. These are the ubiquitous, unavoidable questions that form the backbone of almost every job interview globally.
And because they are so predictable, they are your greatest opportunity to shine. You can prepare for these almost perfectly.
Let's jump into question number one, the absolute classic. Tell me about yourself. Why is this seemingly simple question a trap that so many candidates fall into?
Because it sounds like an invitation to open your autobiography.
Right.
Candidates here, tell me about yourself, and their nervousness makes them start rambling. They talk about where they grew up, their siblings, their dog, their hobbies.
I've definitely heard people talk about their pets in interviews.
The interviewer does not actually want to know about your personal life. The subtext of the question is, give me a brief summary of your professional journey and why you are sitting in this chair today.
So we need a formula. It's not an essay, it's a formula.
Exactly. The formula is present, past, future. What are you doing now? What is your relevant background? And why are you excited about this specific role? And keep it under 2 minutes.
Let's do a language upgrade. Let's say I'm a nervous candidate. My English is functional but basic. The interviewer says, tell me about yourself. I say, I am a manager. I like customer service.
Okay, it's grammatically fine, but it's incredibly weak.
It feels weak. How do we fix it?
It's weak because it lacks detail and momentum. We can upgrade that using natural chunks. Instead of I like customer service, let's add a metric and a stronger verb.
Okay.
Try this. I have 3 years of experience in sales, and I really enjoy helping customers solve problems.
Oh, let's hear the contrast. I like customer service versus I have 3 years of experience in sales, and I really enjoy helping customers solve problems.
You're night and day, right?
The second one sounds like a seasoned professional who happens to be speaking a second language. The first one sounds like a middle school English student.
And if you're a recent graduate, the same rule applies. Don't say, I study computers, use the chunk. I recently graduated with a degree in computer science, and I'm very interested in back-end programming. It gives them context and direction immediately.
So that leads us right into the second of the big three. What are your strengths? Now, depending on where our listener is from, this can feel culturally wrong.
Yes, very much so.
In many cultures, humility is the highest virtue, and bragging about yourself to a stranger is considered rude or arrogant.
That cultural friction is very real, but you have to remember the context. A Western corporate interview is an exercise in self-advocacy.
Self-advocacy.
If you don't tell them what you're good at, they won't know. You aren't bragging. You are providing them with factual data about your capabilities. You have to be honest, but unapologetically positive.
The research gives us some fantastic, highly effective chunks here. And notice, you don't need SAT-level vocabulary. You can simply say, I'm very organized. I always finish my work on time.
I'm a good team player is another massive chunk. It's almost a cliche, but it's exactly what they want to hear.
Why is that?
Because it means you don't cause drama and you collaborate well. Another strong one is I'm good at solving problems. Or simply, I learn quickly.
I learn quickly. It's 3 words, but it tells the employer that whatever you don't know, you will figure out.
Exactly.
Okay, now we reach question 3. The monster. The one that makes everyone's stomach drop. What are your weaknesses?
Oh, it's a psychological minefield, but once you understand the mechanism behind it, it actually becomes easy.
How so?
The interviewer knows you aren't perfect. They are testing 2 things. your self-awareness, and your ability to improve. The secret strategy is to pick a real but relatively minor weakness and immediately pivot to the action you are taking to fix it.
Let's do a role play and let's make it a bit extended. I'll be the candidate. I'm nervous, balancing on my unicycle. You are the hiring manager. Ask me the question.
Okay, here we go. All right, so we've talked about your strengths. Can you share with me what you consider to be your biggest weakness?
Well, I think my biggest weakness is that I work too hard. I'm a perfectionist, and I just care too much about the company.
Okay, stop right there. I'm pulling the emergency brake on this interview.
Too much.
That is what we call a humble brag. Hiring managers despise this answer. It's evasive and it insults their intelligence. They see right through it.
Okay, let me try again. My biggest weakness. Honestly, sometimes I'm just really lazy in the mornings and I'm late a lot.
Again, stop. You've swung completely in the other direction.
But I'm being honest.
If you confess to a fatal flaw that directly impacts your reliability, the interview is over in their minds. You never want to choose a weakness that is a core requirement of the job.
All right, coach me. I need to be honest, but safe. How do I construct this?
Use the formula. Small, genuine weakness plus active solution. Let's model a great answer from the literature. Try saying, sometimes I work too slowly because I want everything to be perfect, but I'm currently learning to prioritize my tasks so I can work faster.
Oh, that is very clever. Sometimes I work too slowly because I want everything to be perfect, but I'm learning to prioritize my tasks so I can work faster.
See how that works?
It admits a real flaw, struggling with speed, but it attributes it to a somewhat positive trait, which is attention to detail. And most importantly, it finishes with the action plan, learning to prioritize.
Let's look at another one. Public speaking is a very common, safe weakness for most roles.
Right.
You can say, I get nervous speaking in front of large groups, but I recently joined a local speaking club to practice and build my confidence. You admit vulnerability, but you prove you are proactive. Employers hire proactive people.
The mindset shift here is crucial. The simple way to think about it is this. These questions are not tricks designed to make you fail. They're just empty formulas.
Exactly.
You are simply plugging your own professional life into these pre-built Lego structures. If you think of it as a formula rather than an essay you have to compose from scratch in a second language, the cognitive load plummets.
Yeah.
The unicycle suddenly gets training wheels.
That's the exact feeling we want the listener to have. You are in control of the structure.
So, as we move past the greeting in those big three identity questions, the interview shifts. The hiring manager now has a sense of who you are. Now, they're going to navigate into trickier waters.
Yes, they are.
They're going to probe your emotional intelligence, your behavioral history, and your ability to handle the actual daily grind of the workplace.
This is a critical transition. This is where candidates with great technical skills often talk themselves out of a job because they misinterpret what the interviewer is actually asking. The questions become behavioral.
Let's analyze question 4. Why did you leave your last job? Or why are you looking to leave your current job? The literature we reviewed is incredibly strict about this. The absolute unbreakable rule is stay positive. Never, ever complain about your former boss, your coworkers, or the company.
It is the golden rule of professional communication. Even if your last boss was an absolute tyrant, complaining makes you look like a victim or a difficult employee.
Right.
The interviewer will subconsciously wonder, are they going to talk about me this way in 6 months? You must use safe, forward-looking phrases.
But hold on, let me challenge you on this. What if the old workplace was genuinely toxic? Like hostile work environment, terrible ethics. How do you remain an authentic human being while hiding that?
It's a tough spot to be in.
Because language learners often struggle with this kind of nuance. They want to be honest, but they don't have the high-level vocabulary to diplomatically say the corporate culture was misaligned with my core values. So instead, they just use the basic English they have and say, my boss was bad.
It's a phenomenal point, and it's where the language barrier really hurts candidates. But the solution isn't finding better vocabulary to describe a bad situation. The solution is a complete psychological pivot.
A pivot.
We call this cognitive framing. You must frame your answer around what you are moving toward, not what you are running from. You aren't lying. You are actively choosing to highlight your future.
Give me an example of how that sounds in simple English.
Instead of saying, my boss was bad and didn't let me do anything, you pivot to growth. You say, I learned a lot in my last role, but I am currently looking for a position with more teamwork and opportunities to grow.
Oh, wow.
Do you see the difference? You are moving toward teamwork. You don't even mention the toxicity.
That is so elegant. Focus on the destination, not the burning building you're escaping. I am looking for new opportunities. It's simple, it's true, and it uses basic English to convey high-level professionalism.
Exactly.
Let's move to question 5, which usually comes as a pair. Are you a team player, and how do you handle stress?
This is where we need to introduce a behavioral framework. It's not enough to just say, yes, I'm a team player. You have to prove it. The best way to do this in any language is the STAR method. STAR, situation, task, action, result.
Okay, break that down for us. How do we use STAR for the team player question?
First, you give the chunk. Yes, I believe we achieve more when we work together.
I start.
Then you use the STAR method to tell a very short story. Situation. At my last job, we had a huge project. Task. We had only 1 week to finish it. Action. I organized a meeting and we divided the work. Result? We finished early and the client was happy.
That is brilliant.
That entire story uses incredibly basic English, but structurally, it is a masterclass in interviewing.
It provides undeniable evidence. Now, what about stress? Because everyone feels stress. If you sit there and say, oh, I never get stressed, the interviewer will immediately know you lack self-awareness or you're just lying.
Precisely. The goal isn't to pretend you are a robot. The goal is to show you have a process for when things go wrong. You want a model language that demonstrates calm execution.
Give me a chunk.
The research gives us perfect chunks for this. When I feel stressed, I step back and make a list of my tasks, or I stay calm under pressure by prioritizing my work and focusing on solutions.
I make a list of my tasks. I love that. It paints a picture of someone who, when the office is on fire, grabs a clipboard instead of screaming.
Exactly the visual you want.
That brings us to question 6. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? I always find this question ridiculous. Nobody can predict the future. Why do they even ask it?
They ask it to read your subtext. Hiring and training a new employee is incredibly expensive. They want to know your trajectory. The subtext is, are you committed to this career path, or is this just a temporary paycheck until you find something better?
So what's the strategy here?
You want to demonstrate ambition, but also alignment with their company. You can say, I hope to grow with this company and take on more responsibilities.
Simple and effective.
Or, if you want to be a bit broader, I see myself as an experienced professional in this field, helping to train newer team members.
And the warning here is obvious. Do not say you plan to leave. Do not say, well, I want to start my own photography business in 2 years, so I'm just working here to save up capital.
Oh, please no. Keep that completely to yourself. Show commitment to the current path.
Exactly. Now, once you have successfully navigated those tricky behavioral waters, and you've proven you're stable, positive, and resilient, the mood of the interview usually shifts again. We move into the territory of hard facts. This brings us to section 4, the money talk and specific job requirements.
This is where things get very real and often very uncomfortable.
Let's tackle the giant elephant in the room, the salary question. What salary are you expecting? Even native speakers sweat when they hear this.
Oh, absolutely.
It feels like a trap. If you say a number that's too high, you might price yourself out of the job. If you say a number that's too low, you leave thousands of dollars on the table. How do we handle this in a second language?
It is a delicate negotiation dance. The absolute primary strategy is that you must research beforehand. You cannot walk into an interview blind. You need to look at industry websites and know the market rate for that specific job in that specific city.
Sure, but when you are actually sitting there and they ask the question point blank, how do you answer it without sounding greedy or, conversely, desperate?
You use deflection chunks. It is a perfectly acceptable, highly professional business practice to turn the question back around to them first.
Okay.
You can use this phrase, I'm flexible on salary. What is the range for this position?
Let me just pause and highlight that phrase.
Yep.
What is the range for this position?
Yeah.
That is a power phrase. You are politely asking them to reveal their budget before you commit to a number.
It is. And if they push back and insist you give a number first, you rely on your research chunk. Based on my research and the responsibilities of this role, I believe something between X and Y is fair.
Oh, like that.
This is brilliant because it moves the conversation away from emotion or personal greed and grounds it in objective market data.
I really want you, the listener, to practice that first one out loud later. I'm flexible on salary. What is the range for this position? Say it until it feels natural.
Absolutely.
Now, what about addressing hard skills you don't have? Let me pose a tough scenario. Let's say I'm applying for a senior data analyst role, and they ask me about my proficiency in SQL. and I actually don't know it. Can I just say, I'm willing to learn?
That's a great edge case to explore. No, you can't.
Why not?
If the skill is the fundamental core competency of the job, like a pilot who doesn't know how to fly saying, I'm willing to learn, will not save you. You simply aren't qualified for that specific role.
Okay, so when do we use this strategy?
You use it for secondary tools or proprietary software. For example, if you are a great project manager who uses Asana and they ask if you know how to use Jira, you don't lie.
Right.
If you lie about a software skill, they will find out on day one and you will lose all credibility. You use the magic phrase, I don't know that specific program yet, but I'm a fast learner and I'm very willing to learn it.
The word yet is doing so much heavy lifting in that sentence. I don't know it yet. It implies inevitability. It tells them, I am a professional, this is just a minor technical hurdle, and I will overcome it quickly.
It emphasizes trainability. Employers would much rather hire someone with a great attitude who needs to learn a software program than a software expert with a terrible attitude.
That makes total sense. Let's briefly touch on how these answers need to be tailored for specific roles. The literature notes that your vocabulary should subtly mirror the industry you are applying to.
Yes, it's about speaking their specific dialect of business. If you are interviewing for a customer service role, you want to pepper your answers with chunks about staying calm, active listening, and finding solutions for the client.
And if it's an administrative or office job.
Then your vocabulary shifts. You focus on words like meeting deadlines, prioritizing tasks, organization, and efficiency.
What if you're in a creative field like graphic design or marketing?
Then you want to talk about researching trends, finding inspiration, collaborating on ideas, and being open to feedback. The skeleton of the interview is the same, but you dress the skeleton in the clothes of that specific industry.
This brings us to an incredibly important fluency tip. A lot of language learners feel like their spoken English sounds choppy, like a robot. I am a worker, I work hard, I like teams. It's grammatically fine, but it lacks flow. How do we fix that rhythm?
We use what linguists call discourse markers, but we can just think of them as connection words, or glue. These are small phrases that attach your simple sentences together. They make you sound highly fluent and sophisticated, even if your actual vocabulary remains quite basic.
Give me some examples of this conversational glue.
Instead of just blurting out a fact, introduce it. Use phrases like, for instance, or, to give you an example, before you use your STAR method story. If you are adding a second thought, don't just say and, say additionally or furthermore.
And what about when the interviewer is talking?
This is crucial. When they are explaining the role to you, don't just sit there in silence or say okay repeatedly. Use active listening chunks. Say, I see what you mean, or that makes perfect sense.
That makes sense. I use that constantly in real life. It shows you are actively tracking the logic of their sentences. It's a tiny little phrase, but it dramatically changes how natural and engaged you sound.
Exactly. It transforms the interaction from an interrogation into a mutual conversation.
Okay, let's zoom out for a moment. We've covered the language, the behavioral psychology, the salary negotiation, but the physical medium of the interview has changed drastically over the last few years. This brings us to Section 5, modern formats and closing the deal.
Yes.
The questions you face might be exactly the same, but how you answer them physically has completely shifted.
Absolutely. The traditional in-person, sit-down interview is just one of several formats now. We have to prepare for phone screens and video interviews, which have their own unique psychological challenges.
Let's start with a phone interview. A lot of people think, oh, a phone interview is easier. I can wear my pajamas and they can't see me sweating.
It is actually significantly harder for a non-native speaker. You lose 100% of your body language cues. You can't see them nod, you can't read their facial expressions to see if they understand you, and they can't see your hand gestures.
So how do you compensate for that? The basics are obvious. Find a quiet room, have good cell reception. But there's a specific trick mentioned in the research about smiling. How does smiling matter if they can't see you?
It's a fascinating physiological hack. When you actively physically smile, it changes the shape of your mouth, your cheeks, and your throat. This alters the acoustic resonance of your voice.
Wait, really?
Yeah, you literally sound different. You sound warmer, friendlier, and more energetic. If you don't believe me, try it. Say hello, thank you for calling, with a frown. Then say the exact same words with a massive smile. The person on the other end of the line can subconsciously hear the smile.
That is wild. So you should literally sit in an empty room and smile at the wall while you talk.
Pretty much.
Another great tip for the phone is to have your resume and your chunks written out right in front of you. It's an open book test. Use your notes. Now, let's talk about video interviews. Zoom, Microsoft Teams, Google Meet. This is the new global standard. What are the rules of engagement here?
First, the technical foundation. Test your camera and your microphone an hour before. Do not be the person fumbling with permissions while the interviewer is waiting. Second, your environment matters. Ensure a professional, clean background and use good lighting.
The eye contact rule on video is so counterintuitive, isn't it?
It is the hardest habit to break. Naturally, we want to look at the other person's face on our screen. Or worse, we look at our own face in the little box.
I'm guilty of that.
But if you look at the screen, from the interviewer's perspective, it looks like you are looking down, avoiding eye contact. You have to train yourself to look directly into the little black camera lens at the top of your screen.
I have an analogy for this that I love. Treat a video interview like you are the director of your own mini television broadcast.
Oh, that's good.
You are in total control of the frame. You control the lighting, put a lamp in front of your face, not behind you. You control the audio, make sure your TV show looks incredibly professional. Dress fully professionally, even if they only see your top half. It puts your own brain into a professional English-speaking gear.
That's a brilliant way to conceptualize it. You are the director.
So your broadcast went well, you survived the questions, you smiled at the camera lens, and then the interviewer leans back and asks the final classic question. Do you have any questions for me?
There is a strict rule here. You must always say yes.
Always. But what if they were incredibly thorough and they literally explained every detail of the job perfectly?
Even then, saying no, I don't have any questions makes you look passive, unengaged, or eager to escape. Asking questions proves that you are visualizing yourself in the role and that you are seriously evaluating the company.
Okay, so what are strong professional questions to ask?
You want to ask questions that show engagement. You can ask, what would a typical day look like in this position? That forces them to picture you doing the work. You can ask, can you tell me a bit about the team culture? Or, practically, what are the next steps in the hiring process?
And what should you not ask? What's off limits in a first interview?
Do not ask about vacation time, sick leave, or specific medical benefits during the first interview.
Right, bad luck.
It sends the wrong signal. It makes it seem like your primary motivation is how much time you can spend away from the work. Save the benefits negotiation for when they actually offer you the job and they are trying to win you over.
All right, the questions are done. It is time for the polite exit. How do we stick the landing smoothly?
If you are in person, you stand up, you offer a firm handshake, you make solid eye contact, and you deliver this chunk. Thank you for your time today. I look forward to hearing from you.
Nice.
If you are on video, you look directly into the camera lens, smile, say the exact same phrase, and wait for them to say goodbye before you click Leave Meeting.
Thank you for your time today. I look forward to hearing from you. It's simple, professional, and flawless. But, and this is crucial, the interview isn't actually over when you walk out the door, is it?
No, it is not. The literature emphasizes the 24-hour rule. Within 1 day of the interview, you must send a short, polite thank you email. In many competitive corporate environments, if 2 candidates are tied, the one who sends the thank you email gets the job.
Why is that? What's the psychology behind an email?
It taps into the psychological principle of reciprocity. They gave you their time, and you are acknowledging that gift. It keeps your name at the top of their inbox, and it demonstrates that you possess soft skills and follow-through.
And you don't need to write a novel. The template is incredibly simple. Dear Name, thank you for meeting with me yesterday. I enjoyed learning more about the position. I am very interested in working with your team, and I look forward to hearing from you. Best regards, your name. It's 4 sentences. It takes 90 seconds to send.
But it leaves a lasting, halo-reinforcing impression.
Now, we have to talk about the reality of the job market. Handling rejection. What if you do everything right? You use the chunks, you employ the STAR method, you smile at the camera, you send the perfect email, and you get the generic rejection email. We have decided to move forward with other candidates.
It stings. It happens to absolutely everyone, including native speakers. The mindset shift required here is to view every single interview not as a pass-fail test, but as data collection. It is high-level practice.
If you don't get the job, you can actually use that to improve. Reply to the rejection email and politely ask for feedback. Thank you for letting me know. Could you share any feedback on how I might improve my interviewing skills for the future?
That's a great approach.
Most won't reply, but sometimes a hiring manager will tell you exactly where you fell short. That feedback is pure gold.
Exactly. Take it as data, not as a reflection of your self-worth.
This brings us to the most actionable, critical part of our entire deep dive today. We are moving into Section 6, the action plan. Because understanding everything we just talked about passively, just listening to us chat, is completely useless. Confidence does not come from passive listening.
It really doesn't.
Confidence only grows through repeated, out loud, physical execution.
That is the absolute truth of language acquisition. You have to move the knowledge from your brain to your mouth. And to do that, the research provides a phenomenal 7-day speaking challenge.
Before we break down the days of this challenge, we need to explain the core mechanism behind it. The literature talks about a technique called shadowing. Could you explain exactly what shadowing is and why it works?
Shadowing is arguably the most powerful technique for improving spoken fluency. It involves listening to a short phrase of native audio like the chunks we've been teaching today and repeating it aloud almost immediately like an echo.
Like an echo, right.
You aren't just reading text off a page, you are actively trying to mimic the rhythm, the stress, the intonation, and the emotion of the speaker.
So it's about muscle memory. It's like a pianist practicing scales or a martial artist practicing a form. Your mouth, your tongue, your lips, they are muscles. And they need to physically learn the choreography of these English sounds.
Exactly. When you are stressed in an interview, you revert to your muscle memory. If your mouth has physically practiced saying, "I'm looking for new opportunities" 50 times, it will flow out naturally, even if your brain is panicking.
Okay, if you're listening to this, I want you to enthusiastically commit to this week-long homework assignment. It is highly structured, and it only takes a few minutes a day. Let's walk through the 7-day challenge breakdown. Day 1 is simple immersion.
What do you do on day 1?
You listen to the source material. Maybe it's an audio program or an interview tutorial on YouTube. You just listen once, all the way through, for overall meaning. Don't pause it, don't take notes. Just let your brain absorb the rhythm of the conversation.
Perfect. Day 2 is where the active work begins. You replay that same audio, but this time you pause it constantly. Your goal is to identify and write down exactly 8 useful chunks, just 8 Lego blocks. Things like, "I'm a good team player," or "What is the range for this position?" Physically write them down in a notebook.
Day 3 is the shadowing day. You take your list of 8 chunks, you play the audio, and you shadow the speaker aloud. You speak over them, you try to match their exact speed and melody. You repeat those 8 phrases until your mouth feels comfortable forming those specific phonetic sounds.
Then, on day 4, you test your recall. You put your notes away, stand in your room, talk to the wall, and speak about the topic of job interviews for 2 uninterrupted minutes.
That sounds tough.
It is. Imagine the interviewer asked, "Tell me about yourself." Try to use your chunks from memory. It will be messy. You will stumble. That is exactly what is supposed to happen.
Day 5 is the one everyone hates, but it is the one that will make you fluent. You take out your phone, you open the voice memo app, and you record yourself answering a common interview question. Then you force yourself to listen back to it. You listen to your own voice. Notice where you hesitate. Notice where you say, notice where the chunk breaks down.
Listening to yourself speak a second language is deeply uncomfortable, but it provides undeniable objective feedback. You become your own pronunciation coach. Which leads to day 6.
Day 6.
Take the areas where you stumble on the recording and simplify them. Retell your answer using simpler English. If a long, complex sentence is making you trip, cut it in half. Make it 2 short sentences. Optimization is about simplicity.
And finally, day 7, the performance. Hold a mini conversation with yourself in the mirror, or, ideally, grab a friend who speaks English. Give them a list of the big 3 questions and have them interrogate you. Perform the interview from start to finish, employing your body language, your smiles, and your chunks.
If you commit to this 7-day process, the difference in your confidence by next week will be staggering. You will have moved from merely recognizing the vocabulary to actually owning it.
I want to give you, the listener, a spoken coaching challenge right now, a mini test while you are listening. I want you to think of your own greatest professional strength. Now say it out loud right now, but do it in a shorter, clearer way than you usually do. Don't use a long, winding sentence. Use a simple chunk. Say it out loud to the room you're in.
I am highly organized. I learn complex systems quickly. Say the words. Feel the resonance in your chest.
It's powerful when you actually vocalize it. We are nearing the end of our deep dive today, and I want to summarize the core philosophy we've been building. If you strip away the chunks, the STAR method, and the technology tips, the most important psychological truth to remember is this. The interviewer actually wants you to succeed.
They desperately want you to be the right person. Hiring is exhausting. They have a problem, an open desk, uncompleted work, and they are praying that you are the solution. They are not sitting across from you trying to lay traps or trick you with advanced grammar tests. They want to like you.
Exactly. Burn this into your mind. Simple, clear language delivered with a warm, positive attitude will always, always beat complex academic vocabulary delivered nervously. They want to see a friendly, competent professional who can communicate clearly. They do not expect you to be Shakespeare.
And if you rely on the chunks we've explored, if you prepare the formulas for the big three questions, if you know how to reframe your weaknesses, if you handle the salary question with data, and if you smile and manage your body language, you are going to stand out above native speakers who didn't prepare.
As we wrap up, I want to leave you with a final provocative thought. Something for you to mull over on your own that reframes everything we've talked about today. We started this whole discussion talking about the anxiety of being judged, the terror of the unicycle. But what if a job interview isn't actually a test you have to pass?
What if we've been looking at the dynamic completely backward?
Right. What if an interview is just the first meeting of a mutually beneficial partnership? Think about that deeply. If you walk into that room or log into that video call believing that you are evaluating them just as much as they are evaluating you, how would that completely change your posture? You aren't just begging for a job. You are interviewing their company to see if they deserve your skills, your time, and your loyalty. Hold on to that feeling. The unicycle isn't so wobbly when you realize you own the circus.